refresh it. Um,
That's weird. It went live. It said to go live, but I hit it anyway. Okay. Yeah, we'll start here in a few minutes. But yeah,
Sweet.
so what's cool is, and I'm going to see if this works. It already looks like it doesn't. So I like the whole, click for the chat
Yeah,
to go in. I have it set up. Let me test something.
sure.
I type in test, and it's not coming up. So I could test it out with fake messages, but it's not working with real ones. So
Huh.
there's something. Let's see. Let me look at my sources real quick, and then if I can't get it to work, we'll just get started. But yeah, that source is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just computers again. All right.
Well,
Well,
it's funny because you were telling me about all these new features that OBS has, and like I cannot find any of them. Like I can't pull up the YouTube chat in my OBS, so I don't know if it's something I have set up wrong or.
oh yeah, yeah. I don't know how that actually just came up for me automatically. I don't understand. Oh, Zionic
Technology.
made a good call. I just realized, like, we're both wearing shirts that have dad on it.
Hey,
That's
there we go. Yeah, exactly.
and then real quick, I'm gonna share I don't
Hey,
have
don't bully us.
anything planned to screen share, but I'll just share because then you'll get the audio and everything.
Cool.
Um,
Cool. Wait a second. What did I just do? Took something apart.
although if I share my system audio with you, I didn't think about that before. Would you pick up the mic, or is it because we're routing it through Ninja that it doesn't pick up?
Oh, that's a good question.
Okay, let me do this and you let me know.
Okay.
So say something real quick and see if you hear it.
Check. Am I doubling up at all on your end?
No, I didn't know if you would hear like yourself. You don't. Okay, good.
Nope.
I think
Sounds good.
that's the good thing about Ninja. It's separate. So
See, that's funny because whenever I've tried to do it, because I was going to use Ninja last week, and it wasn't working for me. I kept hearing myself.
okay, maybe we can troubleshoot that later.
Yeah.
But all right, let's just jump into it. Let me do the thingy. What in the world? Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs. Welcome to Gundam Explained Show Live. I'm your host, Adam Blue, from the wet and beach-like view and scenery of my office, because, yes, it flooded again, but it's not as bad. And Steven, joining like always, rocking the dad uniform.
Yeah, we got to represent fatherhood in a good light, I think. So we'll do our best. At least it's a little drier up here, up my way, but knock on wood, it stays that way.
Yeah, and it's not like it's heavy rain. It's just that it's been lightly raining all day. And again, I got the floors done. For those that don't know, like my office flooded. I had to get new flooring. I was so excited about my new office. And then today it's been raining all day and water's been coming in from somewhere. So I have to get to that in a little bit. But so far, the only damage, and it's not bad, is the bottom of the Perfect Grade Unleashed box got wet. And I'm like, oh no. And I open it, nothing inside at all.
Okay, good.
So I have that over to
That's
the
a
side.
testimony to the quality of the packaging that
Yeah,
Bandai Spirits is putting out there. So
yeah,
well done.
it's gotta be it. So well, cool. Yeah, thanks everyone that has joined. Zionic Shadow, Gundam Explained with a test. Yeah, that didn't work, did it? Dallas Mobius, good to see you. So for today's show, honestly, don't really have an agenda. I think we're just gonna talk. We'll see what you guys are talking about in chat. Hey, Jagan fan. And
Yeah,
yeah,
what's going on, everybody?
we'll just talk about
It's
random
funny you
stuff.
mentioned like
Yeah.
the office flood again because it makes me consider like what life in the colonies in Gundam, you wouldn't have inclement weather at all. right?
Right.
So, I mean, I think there's that whole scene
Hmm.
where when they first get to Earth, like, they see snow for the first time and it's, "Whoa." But, what movie am I thinking of? I think it's like Truman Show or something where they're on the radio and the guy's saying like, "Oh, it's another balmy 72-degree day. We're looking at, partly sunny skies, another beautiful day." Like, it's just
That sounds like
everything's
something familiar.
engineered and
Yeah.
manufactured to just be perfect all the time. But doesn't that get boring? Like,
Well, that's a good point because look, like we look at our generations that we talk about right now, where kids are growing up, where they're not involved into certain things that kind of toughen them or teach them. I mean, that could be debated, but
yeah,
that could be like life on a colony, where you're not going through these normal natural disasters, and so life then becomes very safe at all. Like you're not really. But the difference, though, is being in space in the first place, and
yeah. I
then
mean,
who
there
knows.
could be other challenges, like what happens if the air purifiers go out and it's like, "Oh, hey guys, everyone has to stay inside today because the artificial
Oh,
oxygen
yeah,
isn't
that's scary.
pumping correctly," things like that. So it's like, maybe you're trading one thing for the other, but I don't know. These are the types of things that I find interesting when you start digging deeper into, that
Yeah, and
genre.
I was thinking, like, the other things you'd have to worry about is if the Federation decided to hold a mobile suit in your colony when it's not there's not supposed to be any military presence at a colony. That could be that could be
Look, the Federation doesn't want you to know this, but the mobile suits outside the docks, those are free. You can take as many as you want. I have 9 Gundam Alexes at home right now.
that was good. Although that gives me an idea. I tell you, I've been fanficting. I don't know if that's a verb, but I've been thinking of, like, Gundam fanfic like crazy lately.
Oh, really?
Something that's in the works, that's Gundam explained theme. I'll talk about that probably later on, I don't know when. But, that gave me the idea of, like, what if there's this kinda side story about, like, the Feder almost like War in the Pocket, where the Federation's at a colony that they're not supposed to be, and maybe there's some locals that are deciding they had, like, some community meeting, and they decided to band together, and in the secret of the night, go in and try to, like, destroy the Federation stuff because they don't wanna be involved with any conflict.
Yeah.
That's a pretty neat idea, actually.
That would be pretty
And
awesome. I
make it
mean,
like
some of the stuff that you learn, it sounds like fanfic because even just the other day on Discord, I learned about like the whole Vic Wellington thing and how, a large portion of the Federation's GMs were actually, provided by a single guy, like
oh,
basically a guy in his garage, like building mobile suits, you know,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I'll have to dig up the source for you because a guard captain posted a link in there for it. But I mean, it was just it kind of reminded. Oh man, I think that there is like a story from the U.S. military's history where they like rented weapons from like private citizens and used them in I think the Revolutionary
Oh,
War or something like that.
yeah.
But so it's just funny little things like that kind of lean into what you're talking about. It's like,
Yeah, and
there's so many more people than just Char and Amuro.
yeah. Yeah, and you know what? Even Talos and I were talking earlier, like, just throwing around some ideas, and I was like, I like the idea of, like, during the Titans' reign, their short reign where they were kinda, like, in charge of the weapons, like, Kuraba, like, had a scientist or whatever secretly working for the Titans that was, um, creating almost like a unicorn, so it's like a Titans destroy system in a way. So it's like a mobile suit that the Titans forced this scientist to make, and it's supposed to be very devastating. Almost think like GPO-2 and the nuke.
Yeah,
That shouldn't be a thing. So, and then, but this guy builds in this like Titans failsafe system. So, like, as soon as they're given an order to do something that like harms civilians or something, or goes against any treaties or laws, it kicks in, and they have to have a cyber new type in it. So one guy that's just a regular human spy um, sacrifices himself to become a cyber new type in order to be able to control this thing, knowing that he might end up dying in the end. But
mm,
it's able to like stop some titans from doing some bad things in colonies or something. I was like, that just like came to me. I'm like, oh, that would be an interesting story because I'm trying to think
yeah,
what are some other scenarios you can put characters in where you can kind of see them have to make hard decisions. Like and Godzilla minus one kind of like cemented this. Like when you have these characters in these stories that like that Godzilla minus one, it didn't have to have Godzilla in it. like, to tell the human story,
That's
you know?
that's what I've heard. I haven't seen -1 yet, but, I'm not particularly into kaiju movies, but,
Mhm.
like, everyone's been saying that the characterization in -1 is fantastic, and to your point, supposedly you don't need Godzilla in it, like.
Yeah. I mean, even though really there are some moments that would require a Godzilla-like thing, at the end of the day, like, the whole idea of it is, like, these decisions, the choices these characters have to make, and then having to deal with things thrown at them that they don't wanna have to deal with, and, I think I think that's a good point of view to go to start with when making a story in the Gundam universe. It's like, how can you make it interesting? Like, that's why I love the Missing Link story so much.
Yeah, yeah,
Those
exactly.
characters are put into situations and they have to make decisions that change their lives and stuff. It's
Yeah, and that
pretty
affect a lot of people. I mean,
uh,
it kinda reminds me, there's that movie, Room, not The Room,
oh,
not the,
yeah,
not the meme movie,
critically
but, the
acclaimed.
one that has, Brie Larson in it where, she's taken prisoner, and it's
Yes.
like, the interesting thing that they did with that movie is that it's not about her being captured and, and kidnapped. That portion of the movie is, like, 15 to 20 minutes long. The bulk of the movie is her dealing with the ramifications of having escaped a kidnapper, you know?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, when you think about stories like that, where it's like you kind of take them out of the context of directly impacting the one-year war, I think that's kind of what makes, like, War in the Pocket so good, right? Is that it's not another one-year war story. It's something that they're dealing with the fallout of what
Yeah.
they they had lived
Yeah.
through.
I love that stuff. And real quick, Talos, you mentioned something about um the free stuff for the Robot Spirits Blue Destiny units. Unless you're talking about the option parts, but let me know what that means because when I see free and Blue Destiny, I'm like, oh, what? Hmm. No, but
Yeah, neurons activated.
yeah. Oh, option parts. Oh, tell us. Let me know. Is this like free or something, or send a link if you got one. But
Yeah, we'll order them right now.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Speaking of Talos, though, Steven, do you have Gundam Versus?
I do, yeah.
Okay, we should plan to play sometime because Talos and I were playing the other day, and even though he beat me every time, I
Well,
actually just had fun, like trying to. Sometimes when games are harder, they're more fun. But just learning the mobile suits, but also that is the fastest way to gain the points, GP, I think it's called, to buy stuff. So
yeah, exactly,
we
and
might,
and I mean, that's how you kind of unlock pilots and stuff
yeah,
too, right? Because
exactly. That's like what I want to do. I kind of want to because I feel like when I got into Gundam, I started playing every game out there and then just kind of moved on. And I feel like I need to like go back and properly complete some games. So throwing it out there, probably you and I will probably do a stream sometime soon on my. We'll just play Gundam versus,
heck
and
yeah, I'd love that.
that's a fun like talk and play game, really. And then
Yeah.
um also I want to throw it out to others out there too, and I'll probably make a Discord channel for it. But when anyone is interested, and you have versus, let me know because I would think it's cool to just go online, play with some of you guys. It gets me the GP I need, but but no, I think
No.
that would be a cool way to go about it. Playing with different
Yeah,
members of the
yeah, I
community.
agree,
Yeah.
and, I mean, Versus still has a little bit of that extreme Versus gameplay to it. It's similar, but has its own kind of, quirks. I definitely like the gameplay in Versus more than Mbon or whatever, but,
Yeah.
and,
Same here.
whether it's GBO2 or Versus, Talos is one of my favorite people to lose video games to. It's
Yeah.
just enjoyable. It's
No,
yeah.
and speaking of video games, that Blue Destiny thing he was talking about is actually in GBO2, which is very interesting because I don't know if it's really soon those robot spirits units are going to be available. The first wave, that's the Ifrit and the Blue Destiny. So,
It's very
um,
cool that
yeah,
I mean, that's been kind of the trend lately, right? Has been like there's these P Bandai releases that are synced up at least within a week or 2 of a GBO2 unit
yeah,
being
like the
released.
Verka CPACs.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
I don't know if that already came out or it's about to, but that just got yeah. And sometimes I don't like realize that, or it's like a delayed, like especially when I was first getting in Gundam and I'd play GBO2, I would like buy a model kit I think it's cool I didn't see before on Amazon, and then, like, that would be in GBO2, like, that week or something. I'm like, "What? Is go that" the Delta Chi, was it the Delta Chi, that Zeta, style? Is it the Delta Chi?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's like the
with
white
the
and
Incoms?
purple variant of the
Yeah,
Delta Gundam, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so that was cool. Um, is that all with the yeah, we'll probably come back to video games, but,
always.
something I wanted to bring up, I put a little GIF in the Discord in general of Ant-Man shrinking, and I was like, "This is," I was like, "best method for putting on real grade decals." Because, dude, I'm working on this thing, which I don't even feel like this doesn't feel Gundam-y to me, even though, I'm not too into Wing. I don't build outside of UC often, but, like, this thing is awesome. Like, as I'm putting the details on and having to move things out of the way, I'm like, "Man, this is so sturdy." But the decals, oh my gosh, are they small and tiny, and, like, I'll have my, where are my tweezers at? I have my tweezers, and I'll have, like, these little silver things to put on the, I don't know what
Yeah.
to focus it. Yeah, and I'm, like, sitting here like, "Alright, alright," and then it, like, pops off somewhere, and I'm like, "Where'd it go?"
Yeah, you, like, breathe on it wrong, and it's
Yeah. Yeah, and then I found it was, like, wedged between the back and the backpack. It's like, I'm glad I looked there. It's just so
yeah,
funny how that is, but, like, they look so good when it's done.
yeah,
Like,
they do.
and it almost feels like a Dark Souls boss when you're done, because it's like you just accomplished something that's like, "Oh my god, I'm done. Ooh, this is amazing."
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it when you're working on a kit like that that's got so many intricate details. I mean, a real grade, regardless, is a it's a fun but enduring build. It takes some time,
Yeah.
and you have to pay attention to what you're doing because it's very easy to screw things up, like I did with my real grade Zeta the first time, and then once you introduce that complicating factor of decals, that's like you know trying to beat a Souls boss without Estus.
Yeah. Yeah, wait, yeah, I know, it's great, and so I also started working on, and it's crazy. I had a revelation last night because I ordered a GM custom high grade, and that's like 2011, and I'm building it. I'm like, I could build this within an hour. Hour tops, maybe less. And I didn't finish it, but like because I'm doing something specific. So let me show you guys kind of like a sneak peek of like if
Ooh,
you see the V fin, I'm trying to make it almost look like the Gundam explained V fin in a way. So I'm gonna try to make
that's
a
pretty sweet.
custom Gundam, and I'm gonna give it a story and everything.
I
And
love it.
yeah, it's fun. So it's like I'm in that phase now, I think, where I've got the building down. When I come up with ideas, I've been able to sort of make them happen. It's made me a little more confident in further doing that because
Absolutely.
and what sparked all this was these water slide decals
There you
provided
go.
by Steven. It's like they look like they're official. Like, did you just like carefully like put this in like an old
Yeah, so I
it's
was
so
like,
good.
I have to ship these somehow, and I didn't want them to like rub up against any paper or something. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, I've got spare decal bags, so I used recycle.
Yeah, exactly. But it makes it
But
look
I thought
so
it makes them
official.
look so legit because it's like got
Yeah.
the
Yeah, and so yeah, the idea is with this custom Gundam I'm gonna make, like, the emblem on the shield is gonna look like that, and I'm gonna try to incorporate elements from other Gundams that I like, for instance, on the GP01, how it has that yellow crest. I
yeah.
love that look, and I think I wanna, like, add that as well.
So that's I wonder. Okay, so here I've got that option parts set, and I mentioned this in my video on the subject. So this is that option part set
Oh,
that has
yeah.
just the different crests. It only
Uh-huh.
comes with the Federation, Xeon, and Sleeves crests. But what I had meant to do was put that Neo Xeon crest on the front of the bound dock.
Yeah.
Oh, it's over on my dresser. Um, so I meant to put it on the front of the bound dock, but because it has that curvature to it, and this is hard plastic, it wouldn't
Oh, yeah.
sit flush on there. So what I did was I made a mold of the of that so that I could curve it around and like cast it in a soft pliable material so that I could cast it around the curvature of the model. So I'm thinking to myself, like, the smallest Federation one I've got is about that small.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Um, I don't think it's not small enough to fit on a head,
On a
but yeah,
chest?
I mean, I love that the way that the Gundam from Thunderbolt Bandit Flower
Yeah,
has.
exactly. There's not only that, but the GMs. Like, wasn't it too where there's like all these GMs with that look? Yeah, I love that look.
Yeah,
Like, I think
it's so
that
cool.
that doubles down on that whole like military look because you're seeing the emblem of whatever it is on there and everything. So yeah, no,
Definitely.
that's cool. Um, well, yeah. So interesting episode because again, I didn't really have anything planned to talk about because it's been a crazy week and all that. But here's something I want to talk about. And I don't know how this stuff is going to be completely related. You were talking about the Tomino thing. And I thought that was pretty interesting where he was just
Yeah.
kind of talking about Disney. Now, you were saying that some people were like extrapolating that he was just saying, "Oh, Disney went woke." But what did
Yeah.
you get from it specifically? He's just saying like their storytelling needs to improve?
Yeah, so, I think I definitely posted a link to the full translated article in my Discord. I can post it in the Gundam Explained Discord later if I forgot to. But, basically what it comes down to is Tomino always kind of interviews off the cuff, and he's
Yeah.
gonna say some wild stuff. This one was actually pretty tame in my opinion. He mentioned AI art and how people shouldn't be afraid of AI art because, humans are always going to crave human crafted stories. And I think you and I have talked about
Yeah.
this, you're already starting to see people kind of buck against the trend of trying to make everything out through AI. Um, Now that said, there are a ton of like, grifter sphere articles that conveniently summarize what Tomino said in this interview, which is he did call out Disney specifically and said that their storytelling is boring and disappointing. And those are the two words that they kind of pull out and say, like,
Okay.
see, look, Tomino says that Disney is boring and disappointing, and he doesn't want anime to do the same thing. And that's true. He said that, those are literally the words that he
What he
said.
said. Yeah.
But in the context of what he was talking about is he was talking about, digital artwork and production sites, and he was talking about how when they moved his office, now he's in this nice air-conditioned building, and it's this very sterile environment, and, he's everything's being done digitally, and he kind of misses that connection with nature, and so he was like, he said that things should be more natural, more indie-like was one of the terms that he used, and
Yeah.
that kind of fosters a more healthy creative environment. And he
Yeah.
said that this is that what he's working in now, this like cushy, air conditioned, sterile studio that's all digital artwork, is reminiscent of what you see from a studio like Disney that they've been doing it for years. And the proof is in the pudding that working those in those mediums and in that physical space, their product has been boring and disappointing.
Yeah.
So,
It
I think people have extrapolated his criticisms of their storytelling to be to mean something that they're not. But
right. And a lot of it is where then yeah, people are saying, "Oh, Tomino is talking about how Disney's, getting woke or whatever." But it is interesting that, Bob Iger recently said that they do plan to back off of messaging and make it about the storytelling. And as we were talking about before, it's like
yeah,
you can kind of see on one hand when sometimes the messaging is supposed to be positive and supposed to be something new and but I think the problem is they focus so much on that they lose the storytelling, and I think we can all agree, like, for the longest time, Disney movies were always good. I guess there's the stuff like in the
serviceable. Yeah.
early '80s, but I guess as since I've been a kid, Disney has always had great stories,
Mhm.
and it seems like after the acquisition of Marvel, I'm talking like movies later, around the same time of acquiring Disney, where it's like, okay, we have this wide audience we can reach. But for some reason, they wanted to focus on, like, messaging in a way which I'm not trying to say this is a bad thing, but it's almost like maybe they had this idea, but then it became too much the foundation of everything instead of the storytelling first being the foundation. Because, like, in stuff like Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, there's not, like, messaging in it, but they're really
No.
boring. Like,
I
it's
mean, I
really
fell
weird.
asleep during Ahsoka a few
Yeah.
times.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really weird, but anyway, so it's an interesting on one hand, you get Tomino saying, in a way, what everyone is kinda complaining about nowadays, how the Disney stuff is just kinda boring, you know?
yeah.
And then you get Disney coming out and saying it, like, "Yeah, we need to change we need to focus on storytelling." And it's like,
Yeah,
"Wow, Tomino the prophet."
but, I think that, people kind of get hung up in this kind of right left divide where,
Yeah,
they think that what they want is the same thing, but with the message being flip-flopped, and I don't think that that is what Tomino's talking about, and I don't think that that's necessarily what people want either.
yeah,
Like, nobody wants, like, a super right-wing version of Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that, it's like,
right.
they just want
An
good
art an art
entertainment.
an artist's vision. I think that's where a lot of times this stuff gets lost because more I mean, even though in video games there are names of people that like David Jaffe or, Kojima. Like, in movies, it's like that too. There's, like, the director, but I
Yeah,
think what has happened too is a lot with these latest big budget movies, they use these directors that I haven't really heard of, but then when you look at the work, it's like, oh, they're very competent work people. And
yeah,
I think it's what Disney, DC, or Warner is seeing is like, "Oh, we can get a director that's not gonna demand a lot of money, but they will work really well." But that's like the committee-led way of making a movie to where there's not an artistic vision. That's why in
exactly.
Doctor
Yeah,
Strange 2, Scott Derrickson left because he was like, "Well, I can't really do what I want," even though
yeah.
in
They
my
kinda gave
mind, it's insane that Sam Raimi came in and did whatever he want, and it was awesome. It to me.
Well, and they have
Yeah.
these ideas of, like, the celebrity director, right? And what
Oh, yeah.
people forget is, like, Peter Jackson was not one of these, like, celebrity directors before Lord of the Rings.
That's right.
He was
He worked
serviceable,
to get there.
he was a workhorse,
Yeah.
and he came in and delivered, and that was, kind of the
And it was
y
because he was almost doing what Tomino was talking about. He was approaching it from an indie perspective. He was doing things that the studio normally wouldn't go with, but Peter Jackson was like,
exactly.
"I wanna show my artistic vision," and it worked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, one of the things it's like the commitment to practical effects and only using CGI as an enhancement to what was shown on screen, that was a huge thing because, one of the things about all of these new Star Wars shows, and this is kind of going to what Tomino was talking about, take the messaging out off the table. This is like we're not talking about like ideologies or anything like that. Watching people act on a soundstage or in one of those volume sets where it's like the Mandalorian
Oh,
walking
yeah.
on a set, but he's got the desert of Tatooine behind him. It looks terrible and it looks fake.
It does.
And but you compare that to something like Lord of the Rings that even, what, 20 years ago now, they were in New Zealand. They were on these open
Yeah.
fields. They were in these forests, and it's like, "Oh, wow, it looks real," because it is real, you
Yeah,
know?
that's a very good point because the volume concept is really awesome, and I think there are ways that that can be used, but, like, not not to replace something in nature, connecting with nature, you know?
And I think that
Yeah.
it's become a crutch, and that's what and so this is I'm glad that we're getting into this discussion
Cool.
because I feel like the you know, the culture war kind of brain rot that goes on whenever somebody says these things, they take what Tomino was talking about, which I think is a very profound and poignant message about human creativity. And when you strip the human element out of the creative process, all of a sudden, all of the creativity goes away. And we could be talking about those ideas, but instead, we're throwing rocks at each other and saying, like, oh, see, Tomino's our guy. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not you're missing the bigger picture, I think, if you're engaging with what he said at that level.
Yeah. No, excellent points. Like I am very fascinated about, filmmaking. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. I feel like Gundam, like I can't wait for the live action movie because I feel like that's going to be a turning point for Gundam in the West. And
Yeah,
it was interesting because there's news today of like uh Paramount or Warner Brothers buying Paramount. I don't know if you heard about that. That's going to be interesting.
that's crazy.
Yeah, because it's getting to the point where these companies were trying to like, okay, we're going to put 300, 400 million into a movie so we can make a billion, and then they don't, and then
Well, and that's part of the problem is it's like, why spend $300 million on all these VFX artists and on these volume stages when you can just go outside and film the thing
yeah,
in real life for cheaper?
I know it's crazy. So the other thing I heard too was that Nintendo or Illumination or whoever is looking to make the next Nintendo movie to be Smash Brothers.
Oh, so they're
Which
easing off on the Zelda?
no, they're still gonna do a live action Link, but I think the idea is to make like a animated universe.
Okay.
So like they'll do Smash Brothers, and then like that would introduce all the little characters, and then from there they can choose what movies or shows to make from that, which
It's an
it's interesting.
interesting choice.
Yeah, it reminds me of that Wreck-It Ralph. Like, would they get the licensing to have like Sonic in there,
Yeah.
Snake, all those characters. And the thing that came to my mind is a Star Fox movie and making it where the characters are animatronics or people in suits or whatever, like the puppet look. Like,
It's crazy because to this day, I still think that the actors in makeup in the old, 90s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies
oh,
look so much better than
yeah,
the CGI
exactly. Oh,
turtles.
so the Ninja Turtles came out in Fortnite, and my son was like, "Hey, they got the Ninja Turtles in Fortnite, but they don't look cool like the old movies." And I was like, "Good boy, good boy." It's true. Again,
That gives me hope for the future.
but it's true. It's that physical, like tactile nature of it. And I wonder if, as these kids right now are growing up, they'll then look back at older stuff and be like, "Wow, that looks way more realistic,"
Oh, yeah.
because everything is realistic. It's a literal suit, someone's wearing. Um,
Yeah, and that even Jon Favreau when Iron Man 1 came out, and this is before the MCU was a thing. Like Iron Man was a wild choice for them to make their, hey, we're going to start our own cinematic universe. We're going to start with Iron Man. Iron Man, you mean the guy that nobody in the comic book world likes? Like
I
everyone.
know, to me, that was weird, and I think what it was is the creative aspect. It's like, okay, well, then what would be an actor that's why they're seeing it, not that it's Iron Man, you know?
And then
Um,
Jon Favreau was committed to using practical effects whenever
yeah,
possible, and so Iron Man 1 holds up. Iron
yeah,
Man 3, super digital and
yeah, that's
not
right.
not as great.
That reminded me of someone else we were talking about earlier, and then so when I'm thinking like cinematic and movie stuff, like I talked about that idea of like where there's Federation is hiding a new mobile suit or new Gundam in a colony, and then like late at night you have these vigilante like citizens trying to go in and destroy it,
Mhm.
and what that reminded me of real quick is I don't know if you guys remember that first, not the first, but the Edward Norton Hulk movie where there's that
Oh,
scene
yeah.
in Brazil where they're in that giant warehouse and you can't see the Hulk. You can kind of, and then it's just boom, moving around, and then you see guys being pulled and like think of they're in a warehouse at night where the Gundam is, and the Gundam is that like evil, like it's scary thing that's like in the dark. You can barely see it, even though it's gigantic.
I mean, isn't that kind of the direction that they're going with Requiem for Vengeance? Where the
Yes,
Gundam is
yes,
like a monster and they're like, "Oh, what is this?" And like, there's fog of war going on, there's
yeah.
explosions, and then all of a sudden, this V-fin shows up and
Yeah, the
you're like,
girl's like looking like, oh my God, what's that? And you see it like walk and then turn and look at the camera. I love it. Love it.
it's great. I love
I know.
recontextualizing these things
Yeah.
as different sort of genres of movies where, Gundam as a horror movie or,
Yeah.
and sometimes like, I think some of the early MCU movies did a great job of that where like the first Captain America movie, it really wasn't even technically a superhero movie. It
Yeah.
was basically like a World War II movie, like a
Yeah.
period drama,
Mhm.
but Captain America happened to be in it. And then like the second one with the Winter Soldier,
Oh,
it was like one of those Jason Bourne style
exactly.
thrillers, that also just happened to have Captain America in it, and it's like, I want more Gundam stories like that where it's like,
Yeah, and
give me a Hallmark Christmas movie that
oh,
just happens to have a Gundam.
yeah, and what's his name will be the actor. I can't believe I forgot his name. The guy from G Savior. What is wrong with me?
Oh,
Mark Curran.
Brendan,
Yeah, you're there. Someone in chat will help out. But
there you go.
no, that's a good point with the Winter Soldier take because Hathaway almost went that far, but it
Yeah.
didn't go all the way because then it really focused on the relationship of him and the girl. It would be great if, yeah, you're right. There's more of a Jason Bourne approach or Reacher because I've been watching that season 2 of Reacher and it's sick. Of
Oh,
like,
is that good? I haven't
yeah,
seen Reacher. I was a big fan of, Terminal List. That one was pretty cool. I tried to watch
oh
that movie
yeah, that was
Night
that
Agent.
terminal. That's I've been. Is that Chris Pratt?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that recently. What is the movie I saw that had where like his team got killed and he had to go and like stop? And I was like, was that even Chris Pratt? Because I've been watching Parks and Rec, and
Oh, yeah.
I,
Talk about
like I never
transformation.
watched it before, and it's okay. But I feel like Ron Swanson and I forget his name, but Chris
Oh,
Pratt's
Andy.
character
Yeah.
Andy are like are like the me. There's like this mix of when when Andy does something, I'm like, oh, that seemed like me. And then when Ron says something, I'm like, that
That's also me.
and that's interesting because I think that is again like really good storytelling because what they're doing in Parks and Rec, especially the later seasons, is they're making a little bit of everybody in as a character. Like each
Yeah.
character is so much a caricature of a side of someone's personality.
Yeah, and that's what makes Parks and Recs, I think, such a good show is that it's a diverse cast. Speaking of, like, woke terms, no,
Oh yeah,
it is a diverse cast of caricatures, right? Like, you
yeah,
have these characters that are all kind of emblematic of different types of people that you would see in everyday life.
yeah.
I think that where a show like, for example, Big Bang Theory fails is that you have 4 caricatures of the
Oh, of the
same
same thing.
person,
Yeah.
you
No,
know?
that's a good point because I never got into Big Bang. I'd watch it every once in a while,
Yeah,
but never
couldn't do
never
it.
Yeah, the only reason Parks and Rec didn't hold my attention is because the premise seems so boring. Like,
Yeah,
Parks and Rec government office where these people are and I don't know these actors. At that time, I didn't know who anyone was, so I was like, except for Leslie Knope, because I think she did, like, comedy TV shows in the '90s and stuff
yeah.
like
I
that.
mean, she was big on, SNL, I think, and,
Oh, yeah, her and Tina Fey or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, that
But,
I tell you, that
I mean, could
2000s
you
era
imagine a Parks and Rec in the Gundam universe where it's like a Federation office
Office, yeah, that's
and
that's a good one, like,
and you have, like, the one, like, wacky Xeon uncle that's constantly drinking whiskey and saying like, "Oh, hey, look, I'm the Federation. This is your colony. This is now my colony." It's like
that's pretty good. I like that idea, yeah, I do
everybody
like
has to have their confessionals where they go and say like, "I can't believe he said that to me."
yeah, that is a good idea. I think, sometimes and I'm curious what you think about this, sometimes I don't like it when a certain genre or a certain theme for goes into a different genre. So, give you
Okay.
example, Shaun of the Dead, when that first came out, I was like, "You can't zombies aren't funny, okay? You can't do that. This is serious, we gotta fight them." Over time, I was like, "Okay, I appreciate the comedy in, Shaun of the Dead." But I wonder, like, would you be fine with a UC and this is the thing, it couldn't be a manga, it would have to be either a live action or an animation that's like 6 episodes, but it's a comedy?
I mean, I think that it would be worth entertaining the idea.
Yeah,
You know, the way that those things work, and you can jump in if you feel differently about this, but I think that what makes a when you take a premise and put it in like a different context, what makes that work is when you don't you don't necessarily like criticize the original, right? Like you
yeah,
respect the original. So it's like Shaun of the Dead is a good example because it respects all of the tropes of zombie movies and kind of like
plays off that.
teases them
Yeah,
in its own way. But I think that what it doesn't do is it doesn't say like, "Aren't zombie movies stupid? Like, get a load
you're
of these
right.
zombie movies." You know what I mean?
That
Like
is a
it
very good point.
Y
Yeah.
and I'm having a hard time articulating exactly what I'm trying to express, but
Well,
yeah,
I'll
it's
give you an example. In The Last Jedi, at the beginning, when Poe flies his X-wing in front of the Star Destroyer and he says a mom joke, I feel like that is downplaying the seriousness of starfighter combat.
yeah,
And I'm
and
like,
and
"What? They're making fun of that? That's a huge threat. Like, what movie is this?"
and that's, not to say that Star Wars movies can't have humor because they've always had
They
humor,
can,
but
and it's always been C-3PO and R2 kind of being that anchor for that
yeah,
and not
they are
being
the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the dramatic play.
I don't know that.
Oh, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are, characters from Hamlet. Um
Yeah, yeah, be all smart in front of me. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I haven't heard of that. I've heard of Hamlet, but
Yeah, well, I mean, so there's actually a popular, like, spin-off play, by Tom Stoppard, which so Hamlet, you guys know, it's The Lion King.
yeah.
Timon and Pumbaa are actually technically Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in The Lion King, so if you can imagine those
Oh, yeah.
characters as, but yeah, Tom Stoppard wrote a kind of, like, spin-off play about Rosencrantz and Guildenstern because what happens to them in Hamlet is that they're supposed to be delivering Hamlet to be killed, and Hamlet finds the letter that they have and he changes it to say, "Oh, these guys are supposed to get executed." And so what happens is, Tom Stoppard writes this play about after they've been killed, and they're like trying to come to terms with the fact that like, wait a second, why are things not right here,
Yeah. That is
Uh,
interesting. I think I'd totally be open for something like that. Like, it
yeah,
I don't know. It's funny because sometimes when I watch Parks and Rec, there's humor that is completely, um, impossible. Like, but then there's humor that's like, "Oh, that's funny and that could happen." And sometimes I feel like it goes too far on one side than the other. And I think, yeah, if they were gonna do some like Gundam comedy thing, it would have to be, yeah, no making fun of or talking down to the source material, but at the
yeah.
same time, it couldn't get fantastical, I think, in the
True.
humor.
Yeah, you don't wanna go like full, like Family Guy, Rick and Morty where like people are getting squashed and that kind of stuff. But and one of the other things I think whenever you have that kind of absurdist comedy is that the characters in the story have to believe that they're stakes. So the situation might seem
Mm.
ridiculous and crazy to us, but the characters in the story, they are reacting to it like the stakes are huge, right? A good example of that is like It's Always Sunny. Part of what
Oh,
makes
yeah.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia so funny is that these are these absolutely absurd scenarios that no one in their right mind could get into, but these people are committed to it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it funny because they're not sitting there saying like, "Oh man, this is such a wild situation we're in." It's like,
Yeah, they're like it's like normal, and then it's
no,
how they react to it.
no,
Yeah.
we are absolutely gonna freeze dry a bunch of steaks and like sell them back to the credit card company and like,
Or
you know,
put gasoline in the was it the gasoline in, like, the garbage cans, and they had that in the back of the tr
yeah. Exactly.
Oh, man. No, that's good stuff. So other than a comedy, what because that's the thing with Gundam, like, the reason I like Gundam, the first, step was, all the mobile suits, that's awesome. The story on top of that is really awesome, but I wonder if there's, like, an adjacent style, like, we talked horror, um, and I even think they get into fantasy, like, narrative, I feel like is almost like a fantasy Gundam in a
Yeah,
way because they're chasing after a magical beast, and they
yeah.
have these magic
Unicorn as
powers.
well. I mean, they literally go back in time and or
And which
go
what were you
forward
saying?
in time.
Which one?
In, Unicorn,
When do they go forward in time?
like when Banagher and Full Frontal are having their final confrontation and they,
Oh,
like, go
yes.
to the end of the universe.
That's right, yeah. Oh, that's something I need to explore more because 'cause I've been meaning to explore those interesting fantastical scenarios that happen, like, even in the original Gundam, you know?
And I think that there's a way to ground some of those fantastical elements in a way that makes them really compelling. I don't know if you remember that movie, Contact,
Oh, yeah.
has Matthew
Yeah.
McConaughey and
And,
I think Helen Hunt or no,
um,
Jodie Foster, Jodie
Jodie
Foster.
Foster. Yeah, Jodie Foster, yeah.
One of the best parts of that movie is that they play everything, like, scientifically and technically perfect, right?
Yeah.
And then at the very end of the movie, spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it, at the very end of the movie, she's talking about this experience she had where it's like, "Oh, I traveled through space and I met these aliens and, it was this 18-hour trip back and forth." And they were like, "Yeah, you were gone for 5 seconds. Like
Yeah.
the device fell down, you hit the water, and that's it." And then there's that little bit at the end where one of the women says, "So you know how her video monitor stopped working and all we got was static? What's crazy is that we had 18 hours of static
Wow.
for her
Yeah, that's
5-second
I
trip."
totally forgot about that.
Right, it's the
That's
I
a
mean,
good
I'm
one.
getting goosebumps just talking about that moment. It's like, if you had something like that in Gundam where it's like, because they don't understand how the biosensor works, they don't
Yeah.
understand, like, how NTD and, like, all these, psycho frame technology and all this stuff, it's all just kind of like, well, I don't know, it's pseudoscience, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you had, like, one of those Anaheim engineers say, like, "You know what's crazy is when the new Gundam was pushing Axis, I could have sworn that I saw a dove fly up and,
Yeah,
like,
something like
something."
that. Where it's
Yeah,
like you can't really explain it, it's just another thread of this fantasy to make people,
yeah.
like, question everything. Yeah, I feel like that with real life when it comes to, like, dreams and things you experience or think you experienced, like, who knows, a lot of that.
So you can have fun with that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that you have to contain everything in, like, a military melodrama
Yeah,
setting.
because it would be cool to have I would totally be into a political thriller that could be like the Federate someone within the Federation or within the Titans, like, I keep bringing them up, realizing, like, "Wait a minute, the Titans are up to something." Like, before that even and then that person's, like, trying to get it out, but they never are able to. And that's reminded me of Clone Wars. Yeah, because in the Clone Wars animation, there's a part where a group of clones figure out that they have a chip implanted in them and what's going to happen. But
Oh, shoot.
before the guy could ever let it be known, like the Emperor's able to find out and stop him. Or he wasn't the Emperor then, but it was a neat thing that they added after the fact from
Yeah,
it's like, wow, like they could have solved all of this. And it's like it's almost like a
but all it
dreadful
takes is,
scenario.
like, one, like,
Yeah.
what was it? One butterfly flapping its wings.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think, oh, so one of the reasons that I love that you're bringing up the Titans so much is that one of the tabletop scenarios that I wrote for, like, the Gundam tabletop game that I was working on, I wanted to take the players that I was working with because they had never watched any UC Gundam. They'd only watched Wing. And I was like, "Okay, you guys are new Titans recruits. It's 0084, and we need you to go suppress an outbreak of Xeon remnants attacking this colony, and, go and shoot them down, no questions asked. Here you go, whatever money you need, no problem." And so then once they get there, obviously information comes to light, situations change, and it's like, "Oh, you get to make a choice, are you going to side with these AU rebels? Are you going?" Because they find out that it's like a student rebellion. It's kind of like a Waco scenario where it's like,
Oh, yeah, that's
you have these, like, government thugs coming in, Titans thugs coming in to quell a rebellion, but it turns out to be like a student protest. And it's like, well, do you follow orders? Do you do the thing that they're asking you to? Or do you side with these AU members that are coming in to try and stop you from doing what you're doing? Um, and so it kind of gives the players an opportunity to, you know, pick which side they engage with. And what I liked about that is that I was working with players that hadn't seen Zeta Gundam, so they didn't know that they were the bad guys
oh,
until they were
that's
forced to
neat.
make a choice.
That's pretty neat. I do like that. Because that again, it's reminding me with the good storytelling, like you can have mobile suits in it, but it doesn't have to be about the mobile suits and still be badass, like in the UC world. Like Reacher. So Reacher, the season 2 just came out, and apparently only 3 episodes are out, but it's like the top watched Amazon show this year, and it just came out.
Wow.
Yeah. Uh, and it's like, well, what makes it so cool? Well, you gotta have this classic 80s muscular badass that is quick with his mouth and can and just totally beats up bad guys. Like the beginning of the first episode, he goes to an ATM, there's someone in front of him, and then he can tell it's like a lady that's like crying, and he goes, like, "What's going on?" She's like, I've been carjacked or something." And then he looks to the side and he can see a car to corner with a guy in it, and he goes, "Stay right here, I'll be right back." He just walks to the car, punches the window, grabs the guy out, and slams his head into the door. And it's like, that is awesome. And so, like, to have a Gundam, a UC story where you have this like character that's a hero. You know, a lot of times it's like they're only the hero when they're in the mobile suit, but like a character that's a
Yeah.
hero in the mobile suit is just like the climactic final because the hero can't go up against what the real weapon is, so he has to use a mobile suit or something. Um,
That's a pretty
yeah,
cool concept, and I think that one of the reasons that, like, that moment in Reacher resonates with people is that, people crave justice, and
yeah,
it's something you've talked about in the past. It's like
right,
there's something when you see an injustice, like the you start
yeah,
getting the intrusive thoughts, and so it's fun to see the types of characters that will indulge those thoughts and
yeah.
act on them
Yeah,
and
no, exactly.
exact
That's
justice on people.
so Jamkill X, $5. Thank you very much.
Hey,
Okay, imagine
thanks, Jam Cow.
Commando but Gundam. John Matrix gets in a mobile suit and gets into mobile worker equipment storage instead of a tool shed. Yeah, that is exactly what I'm trying to say. I'm glad you said that, Jamkill X, because
Great example.
yeah, it's like, and you can even take like an action movie that already exists that has a simple plot. But as long as it has a strong character and the character going through something, it would be cool to see them. Yeah, in like he's talking about the mobile worker thing. Like in the Gundam world, what would a some badass like operative come across like as he's in the world, you know?
Would that be kinda like, Kelly from 0083, the Valwalo pilot that works in the junkyard that meets Ko?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
remember that guy?
That's a good example because that guy seemed like he was a badass.
Yeah, he seemed like the type of dude
Yeah.
that, if he saw someone getting mugged on the street, he'd
Yeah. And it would be something simple like that. Like, let's say this, this hero is noticing the Titans are pushing people around, and then he gets involved and like is fighting back some Titan soldiers, and then they're like, treason against the Federation. And then the guy's like on the run and he's like, what's with the Titans? I thought, and then he's trying to talk to his boss, like, hey, what's going on? Like a Federation captain or something. He's like, these Titans, are they controlling everything? And he's like, I can't talk about it. We can't talk about it. And then like, he's like,
yeah,
what? And then all of a sudden he gets like targeted for an assassination. And then he has to like fight through the bureaucracy and the weaponry to, yeah, take them down. And
I love those types of, conspiracy movies where it's like, you can't go to the cops are corrupt, you can't and so, yeah, you
there's
end up
that
with these.
There's that James Bond movie I love with our favorite Timothy Dalton. It's the
Hey,
License to Kill, where his friend in the CIA, Felix Leiter, and his wife get killed. So and then like MI6 is like, there's nothing we could do about this. So he just leaves on his own, befriends the villain to become his bodyguard, and throughout the movie, he's slowly taking out his operation until he can get to the villain. So
that's
that's what I'm
so
saying.
cool.
Like, that's a compelling character arc for any world. So to have a Gundam character in UC that has to go through that to get to the higher ranks of the Titans, like let's say you join the Titans just to get to the top, but to keep it in line with what we know in UC, let's just say he ends up getting killed by the end. And that's
Yeah,
when it really takes Camille to to really straighten things out.
yeah. I mean, that to me almost sounds like The Departed.
Oh
Like
yeah.
The
Yeah.
Departed, but
That's
Gundam, where it's
that's
like,
right.
you've got an AUG guy that has to pretend he's a Titan and has to do like horrible things. They're telling him like, oh, we captured this this kid that was selling secrets to Amuro Ray or whatever, you know, and he has to take him and kill him, and it's like,
No,
but yeah, like you
no,
said,
that's a
by
good
the end
idea
of it,
because it's like the main like set pieces of the story would be yeah, when the Titans are like, go do this. And then when the guy goes out there, he's really making it seem like everything happened, but he really like saved the day. And then, oh no, yes, some of my comrades got killed when they were really, Titans pilots. So yeah, that there's a lot of stuff that can go there. And the reason I bring up Titans a lot is because I just love that dynamic. It's
yeah,
very relatable. It's like when there's a vacuum of power, people with good intentions could potentially go the wrong way, and then you
yeah.
have people willing to risk their lives that are doing the right thing to do the right thing. They have to change their lives. Um,
And I mean, you brought it up that it happens. it's part of like the dark history of Gundam. Like the cycle is, whenever there is that power vacuum, it happens again. It happened with the Manhunters.
Yeah.
They started out, you had Echo Us, which was like a good unit
Yeah.
when it was led under Dagaza, but
Yeah.
then by the time Hathaway comes around, the Manhunters are just as bad as the Titans, if not
Exactly.
worse. And
And
it's
then
like,
I think we even saw that that went far in the future. Like the original Manhunter
mhm,
group would continued to kind of do crap into the future. No, that's cool. Okay, so good movie discussion instead of the video game stuff. Even though I love the video game
yeah.
stuff. But
And I
speaking,
love that we touched on so many different types of
yeah,
of
like
movies,
yeah,
from
not only
comedies to
genres but
yeah,
storytelling. Bandai, we're giving you the ideas. You know where to send the check.
yeah,
But
let these guys
um,
cook.
Oh, real quick, $10 from Lucas Garrett. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you,
What if
sir.
we have some Xeon Remnant Commando Raiders who commandeer a group of experimental Gundams shortly after the end of the One-Year War? The affair becomes embarrassing for the Federation. That that's a good idea because I've always thought about that. Like, what if there was like, how like with the GP project and some other things, it's like they try to hide it. What if
Yeah,
there was some situation where Xeon, just like the GPO2, they got a hold of like some crazy badass Gundams, and then there's like some isolated battle somewhere. Um, that's a good one.
yeah.
I like
Well,
Broken Arrow.
yeah,
That's another good. Yeah. That's good. But no, thanks guys a lot. Thanks for the super chats. But I want to talk about a video game here thing real quick. Video game thing here. Okay,
here.
whatever. So Gundam Evolution. There is someone that has got a private server working, and he says by the beginning of next year, you'll be able to play it again. So that there's a
There
video.
you
I
go.
posted it in the Discord in the video game section, and in the description, or not the description, but in the comments of the video, he explains how, and this is important because a lot of people like push back, but what he's doing is legal. He is not
Yes.
doing anything illegal. Gundam Evolution falls under abandonware. So if
Yeah,
you can, without modifying code, you can still get it to work and you're not charging people or you're not delivering it to people, it is
yep.
completely legal. So for those that love Gundam Evolution, keep an eye out for that. I'll update as I get more information. Um,
Yeah, that's and I think we had that conversation with Seiji, before as well, where it's like, people a lot of times will talk about like, "Oh, well, the community rallied behind this video game." What that says to me is that is really the community rallying behind a game.
yeah,
It's when they're willing to take the abandonware and run with it. Like, too often I think people will give up when like a studio or a production company, developer, whatever the case may be, once they drop a property that people enjoy, they're just like, well, guess I'm not going to play that again. It's like,
yeah,
then how much did you really like it?
yeah,
Because like I said,
exactly.
I still play Gundam versus Zeta Gundam. Like it's not,
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting, and I am all about game preservation. Big deal to me. I
yeah,
play classic games a lot, and I talk about it too. And like even
yeah,
getting into Gundam when I did, like going back and playing all these games, like I want to be able to play that Operation Troy that was on Xbox, and you can play it actually,
yeah,
but it doesn't have like the servers. There's glitches, all that,
right.
but at least like that exists. Yeah,
It's
so.
it's like Fahrenheit 451, but for video games,
Oh,
right?
yeah, man. Oh,
Like we talk about like book preservation all the time, right? Oh, well,
yeah.
we need to digitize all these archives of books and digitize these libraries. It's like, where is the video game library and where's the
I wonder how much like what could be some stipulations moving forward, like where a video game company, if they're shutting down servers, they do have to set up a server where publicly on a website, it's like, okay, we need to make this amount of money every month in order for us to maintain the server. So they're looking for user donations because they're not going to get any new content that they
right?
would be paying for anyway. So how about just have where if you really like a game, you might put in $5 a month, and if everyone else is doing it, that might make up for the lost
Or
cost.
or they do the Wikipedia thing where they just like ask you for donations at every
Oh,
year.
yeah, I
Like,
know. Like as you're playing the game, there's like a pop up. Please donate so you can keep playing. And it's like, but no, it's no, that's good. Good discussion today. You see, guys. So this is what happens when I don't have like an agenda. we get some good discussion still.
Yeah, there's always something interesting to talk about with Gundam
Yeah.
and, just kind of interacting with the community.
I know, it's great. So, no, this was awesome. I'm gonna end it here and see about cleaning up, this little flood, although it looks like it's receded
Don't
since I
forget to bring
diverted.
a towel.
No, because I diverted the water out there and it looks like it worked. So, yeah, we'll
Okay,
see.
good, good.
But that's it. I don't think we talked about this. Are you gonna have a live stream next week?
Planning on it.
Okay,
We'll
good.
see we'll see what happens. I am gonna be out of town Christmas Day, but, we'll
Cool.
see what
Yeah.
we can make of it.
And I think I'll be streaming too, because yeah, it's a Wednesday, Thursday, which really is after Christmas, but before New Year's. Sometimes people take the whole time off, but I'll be yeah, I'll be on.
Yeah, and there's some other stuff that you and I have been talking about, with regard to, year-end
Oh yeah,
celebrations.
that's right. Yeah,
So,
that's right. We need to talk about that
again,
more.
we'll leave you with something cryptic to
Yeah, I
to
know.
end your evening.
And then yeah, Saturday, Build and Chill will be going on in the Discord. So
Awesome.
that'll be going on. Um I think that's it. Anything else?
I think you touched on all of it.
Okay, awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for joining. Thanks for the super chats. Oh man, that motivates me so much. An
Yes,
awesome
thank you, sir.
discussion too. Like I love it when we can get on these topics. So
Yeah,
everyone, have a good weekend and a good Christmas if I don't see you.
there you
So see you
go.
later.
Merry Christmas,